Okay, get ready, because today we're going to be diving into something we're all surrounded by, literally, light. You sent over some really interesting stuff, a whole book about like the fundamentals of light.
Yeah.
Some pieces on light planning, even some photographs. This is going to be good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how something, so fundamental to like just existing can be so easy to overlook.
Right.
But light really does shape our world in ways most people wouldn't imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I'm guilty of it too. I feel like, most people, I only really think about light when it's gone.
Yeah.
Like stumbling around for a lamp switch in the dark,
Yeah.
But you're right. There's like a whole universe behind this everyday thing, and I'm excited to explore it. So let's start with the basics. What is light? Beyond just, letting us see.
Well, so your book describes light as a form of energy.
Okay.
Which, not entirely surprising, but here's where it gets really interesting. It's part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Okay.
So you're familiar with like radio waves and microwaves. Light is essentially like their cousin.
Wait, hold on. So the tunes coming from my radio, they're made of the same stuff as sunshine.
It is.
That's wild.
The key difference is in their wavelength.
Okay.
So the visible light spectrum, that like rainbow of colors we see.
Yeah.
That's just a tiny sliver of this whole electromagnetic spectrum.
So it's like a prism splitting white light. We're only seeing like a fraction of what's actually there.
Exactly. And just like with a prism,
right,
different wavelengths within that visible spectrum, those correspond to different colors.
Okay.
Shorter wavelengths give us like blues and violets,
right,
while longer ones create, reds and oranges.
That's incredible. So each color is essentially light vibrating at a different speed.
That's a great way to think about it.
That's
it's all
great.
about the frequency of those waves.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the book also mentions that light doesn't just travel in a straight line.
Right.
It can be reflected, refracted, absorbed.
Right.
Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So imagine light as this like incredibly fast traveler.
Okay.
On a straight path.
Yeah.
When it hits something, boom, it's forced to interact.
Okay.
So reflection is when light bounces off a surface.
Right.
A mirror, for example, provides what we call specular reflection. So a clean, clear bounce.
Got it. So what about when I see my reflection in, say, crumpled aluminum foil? It's kind of distorted.
Perfect example. That's what's called diffuse reflection.
Okay.
Because the surface is uneven.
Right.
The light scatters in many directions, creating a fuzzier reflection.
So that's the science behind that. Okay, what about refraction? The book mentioned that one too.
Yeah, so refraction is when light bends as it passes from one medium to another.
Okay.
Like from air into water.
Okay.
Think about a straw in a glass of water. It looks bent, right?
Yeah, I've always wondered about that.
Yeah, that's refraction in action. Light from the straw bends as it passes from the water into the air, tricking our eyes into seeing a break. And it's, it's the same principle behind how lenses work, glasses, cameras, telescopes.
Wow. So we're like surrounded by everyday examples of this.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of examples, what about absorption? What causes some objects to appear darker than others?
Great question. So when light hits a surface, some wavelengths are absorbed and some are reflected back.
Okay.
The absorbed ones are converted into other forms of energy, often heat. So, black shirt on a sunny day.
Right.
That's absorbing a lot of wavelengths, hence the warmth.
Right. That makes total sense. Now, this reminds me of the photographs you included.
Yeah.
The toy bulldozer under the different colored lights. It's the same tool, but it looks totally different in each picture.
Yeah, those photos illustrate a really crucial point.
Okay.
The color we perceive an object to be.
Yeah.
That's not inherent to the object itself.
Oh.
It's a result of the light it reflects.
Oh, interesting.
To shine a red light on it.
Yeah.
And only the red wavelengths are bouncing back to our eyes.
It's like a real aha moment for me. So the color that we see, it's a combination of the object's properties and the light source.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating interplay.
Right.
Now, this understanding of how light interacts with objects.
Yeah.
This is a key principle in a field called light planning.
Okay.
Which brings us to your next set of materials.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into the world of light planning. But first,
a
very, very quick recap for our listeners.
Yeah.
We've established that light is energy. It travels in waves, and those waves can be reflected, refracted, and absorbed.
Exactly.
And now we're going to uncover how those principles are applied to shape our perception and experience of spaces.
Cool.
So stick around.
So, ready to explore the art of light planning?
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by this idea that we can use, scientific principles to not only illuminate a space,
Right.
but to actually shape its mood
Yeah.
and how it makes us feel when we're in it.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
And it all starts with understanding the interplay of light and shadow.
Okay.
You see, we often think of light as like the primary player,
Right.
and shadow is just this like passive counterpart.
Right.
But they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And both are essential for how we perceive, the world around us.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it actually reminds me of something I read in that light planning excerpt you sent.
Yeah.
It emphasized that good lighting design isn't just about eliminating shadows. It's
That's
about
right.
using them strategically to kind of enhance the space.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Think about like a sculptor.
Okay.
They don't just add material.
Right.
They chisel away at it,
Yeah.
revealing form,
Okay.
creating contrast through that interplay of light and shadow.
Right.
Light planning operates on a similar principle
Okay.
by carefully controlling the light sources and their placement.
Yeah.
We can use shadow to reveal texture,
Okay.
create depth,
Okay.
and even, guide the viewer's eye.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? It's like painting with light and shadow.
It is?
Now, the excerpt also mentions something called high-key and low-key lighting.
Right.
What's the difference?
Okay.
And how are those concepts used?
So imagine you're watching
Yeah.
a classic film noir.
Oh.
What comes to mind?
Ooh, that's a good one. Lots of shadows. That moody, mysterious atmosphere
Yes.
created by those stark contrasts of light and dark.
That's a perfect example of low-key lighting.
Okay.
It creates like drama, intrigue,
Right.
by using a predominance of shadows with light, selectively highlighting specific areas or objects.
Right.
Contrast that with, say,
Yeah.
a bright, airy, romantic comedy.
Okay.
The lighting's much more even,
Yeah.
minimal shadows, and a generally, upbeat feel.
So the romantic comedy would be an example of high-key lighting.
You got it.
Okay.
High-key lighting is all about creating a sense of openness, optimism, clarity.
Okay.
Think of
Mm-hmm.
like those beautifully lit architectural photographs
Yeah.
where every detail is like crisp and defined.
Right.
Both approaches have their place in light planning, depending on,
Yeah.
the mood and function of the space.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So there's no one right way to light a space.
exactly.
It all depends on the desired effect.
It does.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about the artistic side of light planning,
Yeah.
but what about the more technical aspects?
sure.
The excerpt mentions some units of measurement, things like lumens, candelas.
Right.
Can you shed some light on those?
Of course. So remember how we discussed that light is a form of energy?
Yeah.
Well, just like any form of energy, we can quantify it.
Okay.
Lumens, for example, measure the total amount of light emitted by a source.
Okay. Got it.
Think of it like this. A 100-watt incandescent bulb.
Yeah,
Remember those?
I do.
Those emit roughly 1,600 lumens.
Okay.
That's enough to,
Yeah.
illuminate a small living room comfortably.
Okay.
Yeah,
So lumens tell us how much light a bulb produces.
exactly.
What about candelas?
So candelas measure the intensity of light in a specific direction.
Okay.
Imagine shining a flashlight directly at a wall.
Okay.
The brightness of that spot.
Right.
That's what candelas measure.
Gotcha.
It helps us understand how focused or diffused the light from a source is.
That's helpful. And then there's a luminance, which is measured in lux, right? I
Exactly.
think I've seen that on light bulb packaging before.
Yeah, you probably have.
Yeah.
So illuminance tells us how much light is actually falling on a surface.
Okay.
For example, a well-lit workspace might have an illuminance of around 500 lux,
Okay.
while a cozier living room might be closer to 100 lux.
Okay.
It's all about creating the right level of brightness for the intended use of the space.
This is making me think about my own home.
Yeah.
I have a reading nook that's always so dim, even with the lamp on.
Right.
I guess that means the illuminance is really low.
It sounds like it, and that's perfectly fine if it creates that cozy and relaxing atmosphere you're going for.
Right.
Light planning is all about understanding these principles
Right.
and then applying them to create spaces that meet our needs and preferences.
It's really fascinating stuff.
It is.
I'm realizing there's so much more to light than meets the eye.
Right.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
It's not just about, flipping a switch. It's about understanding the science,
Right.
the art, and even like the psychology of how light affects us.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And speaking of the psychology of light,
It's like kind of crazy to think that something as simple as, flicking on a light switch,
right?
it actually like unleashes this whole complex,
Yeah.
interplay of science
Right.
and perception.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like we've been taking this like incredible force totally for granted.
It is remarkable, isn't it? And you're right. We've only just begun to like scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you touched on an important aspect just now.
Yeah.
The psychology of light.
Right.
We talked about like how it behaves,
Right.
how we measure it, but
Yeah.
what about how it makes us feel?
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about. The intro to that light planning book, it mentioned that light can evoke really powerful emotions, and that's something I've definitely experienced,
Right.
but never really like thought about super deeply.
It's an area ripe for exploration.
Right.
Consider the difference between like a bright sunny morning
Right.
and, a dim overcast afternoon. Two very different experiences, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like sunshine just like energizes me.
Right.
Makes me feel more alert, more optimistic.
Right.
And then dim lighting tends to make me feel like a lot more relaxed, even a little sleepy sometimes.
Exactly. Our bodies are inherently in tune with light and darkness.
Okay.
Exposure to daylight helps regulate our circadian rhythm, that internal clock governing our, sleep-wake cycle.
Right. That's why it's so hard to wake up on those like dark winter mornings.
Exactly.
Because our bodies are still like craving that
Yes.
dose of daylight to get going.
Exactly. And conversely,
Right.
too much bright light in the evening,
Right.
especially that blue light from screens,
Yeah.
that can actually disrupt our sleep patterns
Right.
by suppressing melatonin production.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like how much light we get. It's the
Wow.
timing and the type of light.
Exactly. It's all connected to our well-being.
That's wild.
Yeah, and this understanding is crucial for light planning too.
Okay.
Think about like hospitals, for example.
Okay.
They often use like bright, stimulating light during the day.
Yeah. To like keep people alert and
Exactly, to promote alertness. And then they transition to warmer, dimmer lighting in the evening
Oh, wow.
to encourage like relaxation and sleep.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like using light to like subtly guide people's moods,
It is.
energy levels
It is.
throughout the day. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much thought goes into designing a space that really supports people's well-being.
It really is.
Wow.
And it highlights how light is more than just,
Yeah.
illumination.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of how we experience the world,
Yeah.
both physically and emotionally.
This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener, and I have to say, I'm like looking at the world around me a little differently now.
Yeah.
I'm noticing the way like the sunlight streams through my window in the morning,
Yeah.
the warm glow of the lamps in the evening.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like actually seeing light
That's amazing.
for the first time.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of like gaining a deeper understanding of something so fundamental.
Yeah.
It changes your perspective. It opens your eyes to those like
Totally.
often unseen
Right.
wonders around you.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And to all of our listeners out there, I really encourage you to do the same
Yeah.
next time you step into a room. Take a moment and actually see the light.
Yes.
Where is it coming from? How is it like interacting with the space?
Yeah.
What kind of like mood does it evoke?
Yeah. What does it make you feel?
Right. You might be surprised by what you find.
I think you will be.
Yeah, this has been an illuminating conversation, pun intended.
It has.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of light.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring and keep those lights on.